Hashtagoffy here, Liberty Home Mortgage. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about what the Federal Reserve is doing to the market right now. And I'll be completely honest with you. You know what? I don't disagree with it so much, okay? Too bad. So a lot of people are like, they're gonna ruin everything. They're gonna overcorrect. They should have done this years ago. Listen, hindsight's always 20/20. I didn't hear anybody complaining much when everybody was making money and whatever it all was. Okay, so the bottom line is I'm not sure how much of a recipe it is, but it's a recipe for disaster. That's what we're gonna talk about, okay? So what's the next move of the Federal Reserve come the December 13th and 14th meetings? Okay, the second day of the meeting is December 14th. Let's start with this one. They're gonna raise the Fed funds rate again, okay? They're gonna raise it. The projection right now is 50 basis points, okay? I think they should go up another 75. Call me nuts, have at it, go ahead, whatever, okay? Let's look at this stuff here. They've gotta raise the Fed funds rate again. Why? The next release of GDP, let's start with this one here. Gross domestic product, the next release is November 30th of 2022. It's expected that GDP rises 2.6% in the third quarter of this year. It was negative 1.6% in the first quarter of 2022. It was negative 0.6% in the second quarter of 2022. And for all the people that know this or understand this, the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. That's a recession, okay? And they're expecting GDP to be plus 2.6% in the third quarter. That doesn't come out until November 30th. GDP is gonna be shown as going up. Here's something for you. GDP increasing is not good if you're fighting inflation, okay? People spending more money is not a good thing when it comes to bringing inflation down. So when the Federal Reserve sees GDP comes out and GDP went up, that's going to incentivize them to raise the Fed funds rate to drive that back down. That is one reason they're gonna raise that Fed funds rate. Let me give you another one. Even though inflation appeared to peak in June at 9.1%, it has steadily come down, but keep in mind it's still high. Inflation right now is at 7.7%. Core inflation or whatever is in the 6s, okay? Here's the bottom line. Inflation is still high, people, okay? So to say it's at 7.7, oh my God, inflation came down. It's almost like when gas prices went up to $5 a gallon and then they went down to $4.50 a gallon. And politically, there's certain people are saying, oh, gas prices are down. Well, they're down from $5 for God's sakes to $4.50, but $4.50 is still way elevated, okay? So it's all called spin, right? You spin the numbers how you want to spin them. Inflation is still high, okay? That's a fact. The Federal Reserve knows that. I don't care if it comes down into the 5s. Their target number is the 2s, okay? So inflation is still high. Because of that, they have to raise the Fed funds rate in December. Unemployment right now is around 3.6, 3.7%. They have to drive unemployment, quite honestly, up into the 5s probably. We need layoffs. We need a lot of cuts to happen. We've got to drive inflation down. Now, for all the people watching me right now, I'll give you this example. Here's an example, okay? Inflation's at 7.7. I'm gonna say I'm gonna round it down to 7% as a matter of fact, okay? I'm gonna round it down to 5%. I will explain to you why inflation at 5% is not good for you. Because when people hear me say, you know, Hesh needs people to lose their jobs. I don't need people to lose their jobs. I need inflation to come down, okay? There's ways to make that happen, and we need that to happen sooner than later. Let me give you this example. When inflation is at 5%, right now, a high-paying CD is paying like 2%, 3%. Someone's gonna comment, Hesh, there's a CD paying 4%. Okay, great, lock up your money for 20 years, you'll get 4%, okay? If you have $100 and you put it into a CD today, and let's say it earns 4% interest, it doesn't, but let's just pretend it does, okay? That means in 12 months from now, you have $104. Here's the problem with inflation at 5%. Keep in mind, they have it at 7.7%. Now let's be completely honest about this. Inflation's a hell of a lot higher than that. But let's just accept their 7.7 and let's round it down to 5. You took $100 and it grew to 104. Here's your problem. In 1 year from now, to buy the same things and live to the same standard that you live today, you need $105. So the truth is, you're $1 off. Doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But it's not just $100 we're talking about here. Take your salary, your income, whatever living standard you have today It's about to get worse in 12 months from now, and it's going to continue to deteriorate and continue to get worse and worse and worse. This is why inflation's bad. You cannot have inflation at a higher rate than the rate of interest you will earn on your money. When inflation is at a higher rate than the interest you are earning, every day your life gets a little bit worse financially, okay? So how do we bring inflation down? Simple, gotta raise unemployment. Unemployment's still too low, okay? Chairman Powell at his press conference, I have a transcript of his press conference sitting here in front of me, okay? He said at his press conference on November 2nd, he said 7 different times what the Federal Reserve's target interest rate is. It's 2%. He said that 7 different times. He's trying to remind everybody out there that we have a long way to go and we have to keep raising rates and pushing this forward to get these numbers back down. But of course, we've got the United Nations saying to stop raising rates. We have Sherrod Brown, he's the head of like the Senate Finance Committee, I think it is. He said to Powell actually about 2 or 3 weeks ago that you cannot keep raising rates if it costs people their jobs. See, that's somebody who's pandering to his constituents so he can run a TV commercial and say, see that I'm fighting for your job. Okay, follow the guy who wants you to have a worse lifestyle in 12 months from now, that wants the cost and expense of things to be higher in 1 year from now than they are today for you, and you won't be able to afford any of it. As every year goes on, it only gets worse. That stuff sounds good, but it's pure garbage, okay? Powell has so much pressure on him. So this is from Chairman Powell. This is actually taken from his speech. These are the things he said. Although job vacancies have moved below their highs and the pace of job gains has slowed from earlier in the year, the labor market continues to be out of balance, with demand substantially exceeding the supply of available workers. So right there, he's saying that, and look what he says, the labor market continues to be out of balance, okay? In other words, we need higher unemployment. Let me give you another one. Reducing inflation is likely to require a sustained period of below trend growth and some softening of labor market conditions. Softening of the labor market means we need people out of jobs, okay? Here's another one. Let's see this one. This is actually in Bloomberg. The Federal Reserve has not accomplished anything in loosening the U.S. labor market even after 4 consecutive 75 basis point hikes. Former, here you go, New York Fed President Bill Dudley said. So that's who Bill Dudley is, okay? You know what that means? You gotta raise it even more, okay? Here's one for you. In the September meeting, Powell said this: we think we need to have softer labor market conditions as well. We're never going to say that there are too many people working, but the real point is this. Inflation, what we hear from people when we meet with them is that they are really suffering from inflation. Keep in mind, you need $107 today to buy the same stuff that your money bought you 1 year ago, okay? And you're only up to $104, $105. You're behind the curve on that one. That's why today you can't buy as much stuff. The stuff you could buy is not as good. You have to lower your lifestyle and living standard just to try to keep up with inflation. You don't want that. That's not a good condition. On September 21st, Powell said this: despite the slowdown in growth, the labor market has remained extremely tight, with the unemployment rate near a 50-year low, job vacancies near historical highs, and wage growth elevated. Job gains have been robust, with employment rising by an average of 378,000 jobs per month over the last 3 months. The labor market continues to be out of balance, with demand for workers substantially exceeding the supply of available workers. The labor force participation rate showed a welcome uptick in August, but it is little changed since the beginning of the year, okay? So let's look at unemployment. In the latest report from the BLS, this report was published on November 4th. In the latest report released by the BLS, unemployment is at 3.7%, and it's been in the range from 3.5 to 3.7%, okay? So we're talking about the recipe for disaster, okay? What has the Fed done? What do they still have to do? Let's look at this employment report from the BLS. Look at how many times in this report they actually say little has changed. Watch this one. Household survey data. The unemployment rate increased by 0.2 percentage points to 3.7 in October, and the number of unemployed persons rose by 306,000 to 6.1 million. The unemployment rate has been in a narrow range of 3.5 to 3.7%. Among the major worker groups, the unemployment rate for adult women and whites rose in October. The jobless rates for adult men, teenagers, blacks, Asians, and Hispanics showed little or no change over the month. Here's one for you. Among the unemployed, the number of permanent job losers changed little at 1.2 million. And the number of persons on temporary layoff also changed little, okay? I go back to the New York Fed president who said the Fed has not done much with the labor market. So 3, 4, 75 basis point rate hikes has not really affected employment. In other words, they got to shoot a cannonball and a bunch of them at this to really have an effect. You just see this going through here. It's used over and over and over. I'm telling you right now, based on all of the information I have, unemployment and jobs is right now front and center stage for the Fed. They took care of the housing industry by raising the Fed funds rate and moving mortgage rates from God knows 2.5% to 7.5%, okay? So that's fixing the housing market. The stock market's already pulled back anywhere from 10 to 30% between the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P. 10 to 30% pullback. By the way, there's another 10 to 30% to go, in my opinion, okay? That's the stock market. The third thing that the Federal Reserve has to shake is employment, jobs, or you want to say unemployment, however you want to call it. And from every single thing I just got done reading from you, from the former chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, to Powell himself, to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so far, unemployment has been fairly unaffected by what the Fed has done. Because of that, they're going to continue to drive up the Fed funds rate, and this is what's coming. That's why you're going to start seeing unemployment start rising in January, February, March. I believe unemployment is really going to take off. And I say take off, I think it's going to up into the 5s and possibly 6s by the fall of 2023. I think by that time, we're going to go into a recession. I think we're going to be coming out of the recession by 2024. I think inflation is going to linger well into 2025, 2026. I don't think we'll be cleared of all of this stuff until probably the end of the decade almost. But that's not a doom and gloom look at this either. That is understanding the facts, knowing what's out there, knowing what's coming. And you know what I'm doing for it? I'm going to work harder, focus more, educate myself and educate my clients more. And this is what we do. And overall, when you do that and you're prepared, this is not a bad market that we're in at all. And this is not a bad market that we're coming up to. So this is the recipe that the Federal Reserve has put together. They've affected the housing industry. They've affected the stock market. They've got one more big part, one more big sector to affect, and that is jobs. And they're coming for the jobs, and that's going to start taking care of themselves. You're going to start seeing businesses increase layoffs because when interest rates go up, businesses borrow less money. They have less for payroll. They've got to lay people off. They've got to cut overtime. There's a lot of things that have to happen. Keep following the data. Keep following these videos. Subscribe, like, and share my videos, and I hope to see you on the next video too, or go backward in time and look at my other older videos also. Maybe you'll see, I got my new AC/DC shirt going, my long sleeve, I love it. Okay, talk to you guys later. Keep following. Thanks so much.